Hello, everyone. Today is the 1st of October, and October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, I wanted to come on and share my breast cancer journey with everyone. I know there's a lot of people that followed my journey and, were on that journey with me. But I feel like I haven't spoke about it in so long, and I recently done a story for Clatterbridge because that's where I got some of my treatment, and they reached out for me to do a story for them with it being Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So like, I was kind of reliving it when I was doing that, and I thought, wow, I feel like I haven't spoken about it for so long, and I'm 5 years out now. So I thought I'm going to do a Breast Cancer Awareness Month post and talk about my journey. So I was diagnosed in August 2019 and I was 32 at the time. I think it was like 3 weeks before my 31st birthday. And, it's a cliche, but never in a million years did you ever expect to go through something like that in life. You always hear about stories or people, who know someone, and, you're always hearing about these things, but you never actually think it's going to happen to you until it does. So to say I was absolutely flabbergasted would be a understatement. So I actually found my lump by accident. Me hand just brushed past me right breast, and I was thinking, what the hell is that? Like, it was quite big, so it felt quite big. And I just remember it just felt like bone. It felt like it was rock hard. And it was like a weird shape. And I remember thinking, this is really strange. And I remember initially having such a bad feeling about it. I remember it was like a Saturday and it was like the end of July. And I remember panicking and thinking, I can't even ring the doctors until Monday. So even just that 2-day wait was excruciating. And I remember I went out to do a makeup job on the Saturday, and I remember speaking to some of the women whose makeup I was doing, and they were like, don't be worrying, you're too young for it to be anything like that. It'll be like a cyst or something. But I just remember, like, I just felt like it was something bad. And what I will say is, at the time of my diagnosis, it was still quite rare. You'd only really heard now and again of someone my age being diagnosed with breast cancer, because usually it is like women 50 plus, the more mature women who, you hear being diagnosed with breast cancer. So that's why I think a lot of people who I was telling at the time were not dismissive, but quite, um, you know, were quite positive to the fact that it wasn't going to be anything serious. So I got in the doctors. I remember when I got my appointment, she just done me like a quick examination, and she said, I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think it'll be like a benign lump. I'm going to send you to the breast care unit for more checks. So I think it's like around a 2 week wait for that. Like, and in this whole time, you're obviously very, very stressed out and very, very anxious. So I went, and I think it was a ultrasound that they gave me. So the same as like when you go for like a birth scan, and they were like, yeah, like, we don't think it's anything to worry about, but because you're over 30, we'll take a biopsy as a precaution because you are over 30. So then I remember thinking at the time, so if I would have been in my 20s, would I have gotten that biopsy that day? Or would I have been able to walk out of that hospital? Because at that present moment in time, no one seemed to be that worried, or, it didn't seem to be anything bad. So after that hospital visit, I actually felt quite positive, and I was thinking, oh, thank God for that. Like, it mustn't be anything serious then. They seemed quite positive about it. But they gave me a biopsy. I remember it was just hot like the knee. And I think actually there was some like cysts around there because they popped them with the needle, I remember. But they took a biopsy and that was that. And they said, oh, you know, you just have to come back in for your results. And I remember thinking, oh, what a bally. Like, why do I have to go back in for my results if it's nothing like to worry about? And that was that. So I think I got the letter through, and in about 2 weeks' time, I was due to go back in for these results. So, like I say, felt quite positive, didn't think there was anything wrong at that point. And I remember it was a Friday, and I was really, really busy with work. I was because I was mobile with makeup at the time. I remember I was in Runcorn Witness because I was still living in Liverpool, so but I was here, there, and everywhere. And I remember thinking, bloody hell, got to go in for this frigging appointment now, and I already know that it's all right. Just seeing it as a massive inconvenience. So went to the hospital, went to the Royal, and I was on my own because I thought I already know what they're going to say. Didn't think to take anyone with me. And I just remember they sat me in this room. And I remember like, I felt like I'd been in this room for ages. And I was thinking, this is a bit strange. So then I started like getting a little bit anxious because I was thinking, why am I even just been sat in this room for ages? Next thing, a doctor and a nurse walks in. Instantly, I don't know what it was, like the look on the faces, or it was, you know, I just remember looking at them thinking, and instantly thinking, this doesn't feel too good. And straight away they were like, are you on your own? So I was like, yeah. They were like, is there anyone you want to call? I was like, no, why? And obviously hearing that comment, I like me stomach just stank. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? So then they were like, oh, well, you know, you had a biopsy done and, you know, it's come back and it's breast cancer. He was like, excuse me. And they were like, yeah, I'm really sorry. And I remember being like, just sheer disbelief because I'm thinking, whoa, what's going on? Like, I thought it was benign, or it's, you know, like I say, you just, all of a sudden, everything just, you just go into this weird, like, state of mind where you're just like, what the hell is going on here? Which is obviously shock. And I think you just, you know, your body just fills with adrenaline and you just instantly go into like fight or flight. So you're just all discombobulated. And I was just like, and they were like, do you want us to ring someone? So I was like, ring my sister. I was like, you're going to have to ring her though. I can't speak. Because I thought, what do I say? I was just like, sorry, first when they told me, I just remember like the first thing I thought, like I just remember like flashes of Isla, boom, boom, like going through my brain, and I was just like, am I gonna die? And he was like, no, look, like we've caught it really early, like you've caught it really early. It's, you know, it's beatable, or I can't remember the exact words that they used, but they were like, you know, it's curable, I think it was. And I was just like, yeah, just in sheer disbelief. I think I cried for like 5 minutes, and then I was just like, okay, then I've got cancer, and I'm gonna fight it. Like, let's go. Which was just bizarre because give me like something minor during my day, and it can completely throw me and like make me feel dysregulated to death. Give me a crisis, and I'm like, I'll have me moments, and then I'm like, oh, all right then, like, let's go. Okay. I fully accept the circumstances and I'm ready. So I remember my sister coming, she was with my auntie, and I just remember my sister come like barging through the door and was like, what's going on? And I was just like, got cancer. And she just like fell to the floor, if I remember correctly, and was just, and everyone, and I was just sat there like, not finding it funny, but I was like, "Hey, get on," you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, at that present moment in time, I'd fully accepted it and just come to terms with it, which was bizarre in itself. And they took it worse than I did. They were just like, "Oh," and then I think obviously then there was just like tons of information that was just going in one ear and out the other. I just remember somebody had triple negative cancer, which is one of the worst ones you can get, but it had a slight hormone response, but only slight. So they're treating it as triple negative. And even though it was only stage 1, because I remember he said to me, you know, you've only had that lump for months, possibly a matter of weeks. He was like, but the rate that it's growing, like it's very, very aggressive. It was grade 3 aggressive, so it was like one of the like or the most aggressive one. He was like, basically we're gonna have to get to it ASAP. So obviously then they give me, I can't remember if they gave me all the information then or if it was on the next visit, but obviously I think I had to go back to find out me plan of action basically. And because I was young, what happens is the chemo will put you into a premature menopause. So when you're at an age where, you're not super young, but you're not, at your menopause stage yet, there is still a chance that once you're put into that menopause, you might not come out of it. So what they offer you is to freeze your eggs. So I had to go through egg collection treatment before I could start the chemo and stuff. So with regards to that, you are you have to inject hormones daily for like 2 weeks. So that helps your body then produce more eggs. And so there's more eggs to collect and then therefore more eggs to freeze. So that in itself is just like, imagine like having to pump yourself with a load of hormones as well. Like, oh. And I hate needles. I hate needles. And no matter how many times I've had needles or how used to needles I am now, I still hate them. I hate them. So you have to inject yourself. I was like, there's no way. There's no way I can inject myself. I can't do it. It physically makes me sick. This is why I could never do aesthetics or anything like that because I just can't cope with the needles. It's just not for me. So I had to get my sister to do it. So I had to go through that. And I remember when I went to get my eggs collected, I just remember crying through the whole procedure. I think I made the doctor uncomfortable as well because he was like reluctant. He didn't know what to do. Bless him. He was like, do I carry on? Are you okay? Or what should I do? But I think it's because they were like, oh, everything looks amazing. Everything looks great. You've got a lot of eggs there and this and that. Your ovaries are great. And I just remember thinking, but they're not going to be for much longer once I start this chemo, though, are they? And that's all I could think about in that present moment in time. And I was just crying my eyes out through the whole thing. It was, I was very, very sad during that. Um, and then once that was done, you were just thrown straight into chemo then, because this is the thing as well. What you don't understand is as soon as you're diagnosed, you are just thrown into, like, the rug is just pulled beneath your feet and you are just thrown into this life of the unknown that just becomes so overwhelming because you're just inundated with doctor's appointments, hospital appointments, this, that, the other, injections, and your head's spinning, but you've got no time to think about it. You've just got to go. And like I say, because your body just goes into like that fight or flight mode, you are just like firing on all cylinders, and you don't even get a chance to even think about anything or have time for anything to fully sink in because you've just got to fight. It's the minute you're told in that room, that is it. You're ready for war. You're ready to fight. Like the fight's on. Do you know what I mean? So it's it's a very, very intense and overwhelming time. So they told me, I had 13 rounds of this first chemo and I had to go to the hospital every Wednesday morning for chemo. And, I remember being so scared, so petrified, because you don't know what to expect. And then I opted for a cold cap. So the cold cap is to help you save your hair when you're going through chemo. So it literally freezes your head. It freezes your hair follicles to prevent any hair loss. And I remember there was just so many horror stories around this cold cap. It kills. It's this, it's that. I remember being fucking petrified, walking into the hospital that first morning of chemo. Sure it was like September 11th, if I remember correctly, the date. And yeah, it was just like, I was so scared, so scared. And I remember sitting there, put the cap on, it's just like a helmet. You'll see it on my videos on my Instagram. It's Blessed with Cancer page. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is like, I don't know, you feel like you're getting put in the electric chair or something, like I can't explain it. And then the next thing I'm like sat there and like obviously I can feel my head getting colder and colder, and I was thinking, like, waiting for this like pain to just come, and she was like, "Hey, that's the worst of it over." And I just remember thinking, is this a joke? Because I literally couldn't barely feel like I'd geared myself up that much for like this such intense pain that I was like, is that it? I was like, oh my God. And I felt stupid then for getting myself that worked up going in there. And it wasn't even nothing. Do you know what I mean? So I was just like, okay, so that made for the worst there. And then I just remember the chemo session wasn't that bad at all. And then that was it then. I would look forward to these chemo sessions every week. I used to go in there, I'd have a laugh with the nurses, I met people, we'd have our chemo together. It was actually like I used to look forward to going in there. I'd go in, I felt like, make myself at home. I'd have like my comfies on, bed socks, hoodies, me blankie, magazines, snacks. And like, I loved it. I don't know whether it's because I was getting a bit of peace when I was in there or what, but I just remember like always looking forward to going in there, and I enjoyed it weirdly. And I remember there was mushroom soup of a Wednesday, and when I say I loved that mushroom soup, it looked like dishwater. Don't ask me why I loved it too much, but I absolutely loved this soup, and I used to look forward to my soup with me little balm with it or whatever, or my snacks. And yeah, someone used to come with me. Everyone would rotate each week, so I'd either have my mum, my dad, or one of my sisters come into chemo with me, and we had a little routine going on. And I remember I'd always wear a different colour lipstick going to my chemo, whether it be red, pink, blue, green, yellow. And maybe that was like a bit of a coping mechanism for me at the time. But that's what I used to do. And they'd be like, oh, what, we were wondering what colour you'd have on this week. So it was like, became like a little bit of a thing. And I don't know, like just looking back now, it was probably just a little incentive, like just to distract my mind for, what was really going on. Because even now, it was such a negative thing what was happening to me. I refused to be consumed by that. I really refused to be consumed by that. So I was just like anything positive possible. Because I'm a very, very positive person anyway. My glass is always half full. I've always been like that. That's my character. So I wanted to, you know, infiltrate that into this horrible negative experience that I was going through. And it really, really helped, because I didn't think I'd seen, not that I'd ever really followed anyone going through that journey beforehand, but everything I'd known about cancer was all very doom and gloom, sad, death, fucking, you know what I mean? And I didn't want to portray it in that light. I wanted to do something different. So I think when I vlogged that journey, because of how positive that I was, it kind of like shone a different light in a respect. And I knew that it helped other people who were diagnosed after me, who followed my journey, because they said, like, to see how positive you was really helped and really made me positive. So I was really, really happy that that was kind of the stance that was taken at that time. And I was able to be very, very positive and upbeat and very strong. Like, I don't think I realised how much of a strong person I was until I went through that experience. And I think that's why I called it Blessed with Cancer, because I didn't want to take away, how shit cancer is and how much, um, how bad that experience has been for other people. Like, I didn't want to, I was very, very cautious at the time to call it that for that reason. But, I had to just go with how I felt and how I wanted my journey to be perceived, and, the light I wanted to shine on it, which was, feeling blessed, being positive, and trying to get through it as best as I could. So that's what I done. And it really, like I say, it helped, and it helped a lot of people who came after. So, I'm very, very grateful that I did. I was like that going through it. And the chemo was hands down the hardest part of that cancer treatment, hands down. I speak for anyone who's had, a very intense chemotherapy journey. They know how tough it is, because not only does it affect you physically, it can come for your mind, body, and soul. I, come the end of that experience, was clinging on to my sanity for dear life, because that's how intense it is. I'd done my first 13 rounds. And to be honest, I was still in the gym. I was still doing everything. I'd done everything I could. The other side as well. I tried to stay as healthy. I dropped all my sugars. I was plant-based. I was on cannabis oil. And my lump actually was gone within 4 weeks of me starting my treatment, because I really homed in. I really, really homed in. I was healthy as I could be on the other side as well. I was holistic and I was pharmaceutical. I chose to do both, and doing both really, really worked for me. It really, really worked for me. So coming to the end of my first round of chemo, it started to get me, and, being in the hospitals as much as I was, with very, very, each week my immune system was getting more and more attacked, and I could feel it. I could feel it diminishing in those last couple of weeks. And then I ended up with like the worst flu ever, which then turned out to be COVID, because this was the December before the February breakout. And I just remember I could feel like I was slowing down, and my emotions were everywhere. It was starting to get to me at that point. And if I'm being deadly honest, I wanted to stop my chemo at that point. I didn't want that second chemo. And I was reluctant. I was thinking, I'm not having it. I don't need it. I was just having to go with my intuition at that time, and that was telling me, you don't need that second leg. You've done enough. Just go in for your surgery. But, family members and stuff I think everyone was just so worried, and no one really wanted me to stop the chemo. So I went ahead with the second part of chemo. And I think for me, this is where everything shifted, and everything all of a sudden went from like this positive light to, like, this is where I experienced the doom and gloom side, the more dark and negative side of everything. And this second round of chemo is the most potent, strongest chemo that there is. I can't remember the medical name, diamoxin, something like that. It's on my page, but its nickname is the Red Devil. And let me tell you now, it really lives up to its name. The devil it is. And, I come from a very, very religious family. Like, my family are Jehovah's Witnesses. So I know only too well about the Bible and about Satan, the devil. And this is something that's always been a big part of my life, God and the devil and all the rest of it. So I experienced like such a crazy time during this time. And I think I did document it a bit at the time on my page, but I don't think I've really spoke about it since all that experience, because I think people are just going to think that I sound crazy. But I think people know me better than that by now. I don't really give a shit about what people think. So I'm going to talk about that experience today. And, you know, this is how potent that this chemo is. It on the first 13 rounds of chemo, I got on a drip through a cannula. They offered to put like a PICC line into your arm, which you just go and they just hooked like the drip up to it. But I didn't like the thought of just having something inside my arm like that. So as much as I hated needles, I went in for the cannula, and don't get me wrong, it was a ball ache, because obviously you'd have, like, it's quite time consuming, because you'd have to go in and sit and they have to find veins. Sometimes they'll get the wrong vein, so they'll have to take it back out, put it back. And, you know, as each week passes, your veins are getting more and more tired and weak, and it's a lot harder for them to find like good veins, so to speak. But, you know, don't do anything by half. So this particular chemo has to be manually administered. So they have to sit there and do it. And it's like in this like huge syringe. And the reason why they have to do it that way is because the chemo is that strong that if it was to leak onto your skin, your skin would, it'd leave 3-degree burns. So you would have to go and get like your skin sorted in the burns unit. Like that's how potent this chemo is. And I just remember the first time I had it, I just felt it burning through my veins. Like I can still feel the feeling now. You just feel it burning, like going up your arm. It's just burning inside your veins. It's absolutely disgusting. And, you know, everything changed once I started that chemo. It really came for me. And bear in mind, I've already been battered for 13 weeks, so I was quite weak at this point. And honestly, like, I felt like I looked different. Like, it transformed my face. You know, because I was on so much medication at this point now, and I was just on a cocktail of different drugs. Like, when I say I was clinging on to my sanity, I was clinging on for dear life, because I was hallucinating or something. Because I just remember I had 2 rounds of this horrible stuff, and I just said, I am not going back. I'm not going back. Like, I felt like I was in like the Bermuda Triangle at that time, because I didn't feel like I was in real life. And time, like I was in, like, you know, time would escape me. Like 1 minute I'd look at the clock, and the next minute I'd look and 6 hours had passed, and I don't know what I'd done in those 6 hours. I lost loads of weight. Like I say, the whole experience just changed in that I was dead ill. And I remember I vomited like 36 times in 24 hours. And they were like, you should have come to the hospital. We needed to give you an injection. I said I didn't know. You know, I mean, like, bear in mind, you know, I lived on my own as well. My nan used to come and stay a few nights, and my mum would, but the majority of the time I was on my own. So, like, I don't even know how I got through that time, if I'm honest. Um, it made me so weak. Like, I felt like I was dying. I was. Like, it was just absolutely destroying me. I felt like I was dying. I was so frail. You know, I could barely make it to the top of the stairs without collapsing. I couldn't catch my breath. My lungs, just everything was just diminishing. It was the craziest experience. And you know, things got so bad when I was going through that chemo, because the house that I lived in at the time was, you know, like an old terraced house. So the bathroom, there was only one toilet in the house, and the bathroom was downstairs, right at the back of the house. So you'd have to come right through the living room, through the kitchen, to the bathroom. So during that time, I used to have a bucket next to my bed. So if I needed a wee in the middle of the night, I'd have to go on this bucket, because I couldn't make it to the toilet, because I lived on my own as well. So it was too much. I was too weak. Couldn't keep getting up and down and up and down. And my bladder was just destroyed during this time, and still is, to be honest. I mean, I do drink a lot of water, but my bladder is so weak now. I am constantly on the toilet, and that was kind of where it stemmed from this time, because yeah, my bladder just went dead weak after that, and I needed the toilet so much that I couldn't keep getting up and down and making it up and down the stairs, that I had to go in a bucket. So this is why, like, behind the scenes, it was horrendous. It's definitely a time that I look back on and wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, you know what I mean? Wouldn't wish it on anyone. I'm not like that anyway, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, it was a dark time, and I barely was clinging on to my sanity at this point. I feel like so many weird things were happening to me, and there was a time where everything was just so dark and weird, and I was I'm gonna sound crazy, but I was stood, and the devil was stood in front of me, and I must have been in hell or somewhere, because I just feel the heat of like fire. Oh, it was bizarre, and like this devil was stood in front of me, and he was massive and like proper like muscly. These just massive horns and like a scary face, like what you would like see in like a horror movie or something. That's what I could see. And I just remember he was trying to take me with him, and like take me hands and like lead me into like the depths of hell. And I was just like, I'm not going. And like, but as scary as he was, and as crazy as whatever it was that was happening at that time, I wasn't scared at all. It's like, I'm not fucking coming. And I was just like screaming, I'm not coming. And then the next minute, as soon as like I said no, everything just like disappeared. And then I just felt like this warmth and light, like come from like the bottom of my body right through and out the top of my head. And then everything just seemed a lot lighter again. And because I like it sounds dramatic, but I honestly just felt the presence of God so much during that time, other than when it went dark. But then as soon as I'd refused to get lost in that darkness, everything just went back light again. It was the 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 most bizarrest experience I think I have ever experienced. But this is what was happening, like around me. Like oh my God, it was so intense. Like I say, literally clinging on to my sanity with a by a fine tooth comb. Um, that's not the right saying, is it? But you know what I mean. Um, it was a weird time, weird time, and then it was Christmas, because it was Christmas time, and I was so ill. And this is why, like, I absolutely love Christmas. It's one of my favourite times of year, but obviously now it is a little bit tainted with like that darkness and those memories. Because it was such a bad time, and I remember it was Christmas Eve, and I kept on my hair all through the journey. But then, well, once I decided I'm not coming back for chemo, I'm not coming back, I'm not having that stuff. I remember going to get in the shower, and I was sat in the shower, and I remember my hair felt dead matted, and I didn't understand why. And then when I realised what was happening was all my hair was falling out, because it was just shoved up in a bun. All my hair was falling out, and because it was coming from the root and obviously falling, it was just gathering like in the middle of my head and clumping. And I was like taking out the bubble, and all my hair just started falling out. I remember Christmas Eve, and I was just like, I was so ill, dead frail, just sat in the bathtub watching all my hair fall out. And in that moment, that's when it just went boom, and everything just became real then. Because, I'd escaped that like hair falling out business pretty much through the entire thing until right at the end. My hair, I thought, you know what I mean? Just my luck. Someone's having a right laugh at me, yeah. Like, that's how it felt. I thought, oh, what a joke. And then I was sat for hours, And I remember Isla was in bed, I was crying my eyes out because I didn't want her Christmas ruined, and she was only 5 at the time. It was horrendous. And I was sat, and it was taking me hours to comb through my hair. I was just sat on my own. I had piles of hair, clumps and clumps of hair everywhere. And I was getting that agitated that I just started like ragging my hair with the brush, and all my hair was like, one side of my hair was like, I was so bald on one side because I was ragging my hair that much that it was just ripping my hair out, because I was just that, like just that demented in that present moment in time. It was horrific. And then I think, I went into like a bit of a psychosis, and I was just like pacing everywhere. And I remember the next morning, because I barely slept. I had insomnia. So, for weeks, like I wasn't sleeping properly. And this is why I was on the cannabis oil as well, because that was the only thing that would help me sleep. But towards the end, that wasn't even putting me to sleep anymore. And I just remember, because I lived by a main road at the time, like a busy road, and I could always hear the buses and stuff. And I just remember, like, a good few times this happened, I would just lie there in the middle of the night thinking, if I didn't have Anna now, I would walk to that road, and I would throw myself in front of one of those double deckers. Like that's how I felt. Like, that's how bad it was. But it's just intrusive thoughts, when like I say, you're clinging on mentally by, a thin rope. So it's like, you do experience these types of thoughts. And yeah, the next morning I was just pacing and talking to myself, and like definitely having like a bout of like I was quite psychotic in that moment, I think. And that Christmas, it isn't one to remember, I know that much. But that was the worst of it. That's the worst that it got. I didn't go back in to finish my chemo because I felt like it was just killing me. So I said, right, schedule me in for my surgery. I did say to them, just take my boobs off. But he was like, no, it's fine. You're young. You just need a lumpectomy. Don't want to do that. So I was like, okay. And then I just remember being really, really ill at this, because that chemo, like I say, destroyed me. I had no immune system at that point. I couldn't even breathe properly. My tongue was that swollen. I'm surprised it still fit in my mouth. It was like a grey colour, like the colour of a corpse or something. Swollen, full of ulcers. Couldn't eat. Like, it was just horrific, honestly. And then, like, I didn't go back for the chemo, so I started to get my strength back a little bit. So I thought, right, gonna have a party, and I'm gonna shave my hair off live on my socials. And that's what I did. I had a family get together in my sister's. I had my little glass of Prosecco. I was in good spirits. After I'd made those decisions and took my power back, I felt so much better, because felt so out of control at that time, and it wasn't good for me. I thought, right, that's it. I'm going to do what I want to do, what I know what's best for me. And that's what I done. And from that moment, I started regaining all my strength back. So I had my little party. I shaved my hair off. I made up that I did, because I could have probably saved it and just wore hats, but wanted it off. I felt like it was tainted. I just wanted it off. And that's what I did. And I made up that I did it because, oh my God, the way my hair grew back was just absolutely insane. And not only that, in that present moment, the sense of empowerment that I felt from shaving my hair off, and like the like euphoria and everything was just, I can't even begin to explain how that felt, but that was literally the highlight of the whole journey for me in that moment. I was such a good night that night, and everyone was just so amazing. Like I've spoke about it before. My social media during that time is what saved me. I'm not joking. Like the strength that gave me, just the love and support of so many people that I didn't even know as well. Constantly getting sent presents through the post. People were so good to me at that time. I don't think I've ever felt so loved in my entire life. So it was such a special time for me as well. As much as horrific as it was such a special time as well. But once I got through the chemo side of things, I was all right. Like the surgery, I was fine. I remember just jumping up and being like, right, can I go home? And they were like, can't go home yet. But they were just couldn't believe how, like, straight away as I come out of surgery, I was like, right, boom, jumped up out the bed and was just bouncing around everywhere. They just couldn't believe it. They were just like, you need to rest. And I think they wanted to monitor me for a few hours. But, yeah, like like, because that chemo was such an intense experience. Anything that came after that felt like a breeze, and that's not me saying it in like a cocky way. It was nothing compared to that chemo. So I got through the surgery, I was okay, and then my last leg was the radiotherapy, and that was hard because we went into COVID then, and I was having to go. I think like the first few appointments, people were with me, but then like when it came to ringing the bell and stuff, I had to do that on my own. So no one was actually there with me. When I done that, I had to get the nurse to film me, and everyone in the waiting room was like clapping, and it was lovely. But I was on my own, so it was, wasn't very nice in that respect. And that's kind of how it ended. Like, just I came out of that cancer experience and straight into the COVID experience. So it was a very, very, very strange time. That time, and I'm just so glad and grateful to be way out of it, and 5 years down the line, and just going from strength to strength, because it is a scary time. And even as a survivor, you do live with fear and worry that it could come back at any time. And it is scary because you do feel like you're constantly looking over your shoulder. It's just always there, lingering in the back of your mind, and you can't quite shake it. Um, and, I'm so grateful for that experience, because if someone said, like, go back in a time machine for it to not happen, I'd say no. I'd go through it all again, because of the person that I've become, and the wisdom and just everything that has come off at the back of it. But don't get me wrong, I've never been the same again. My anxiety intensified tenfold, and like I say, always living with that fear, that it might come back and whatever else. And, suffering with my mental health a lot, up and down a lot. I wasn't used to that beforehand. So it's things like that you just learn to live with it, and you just learn to sort of ride it out, because I'm hoping that it's not going to be that way forever, but it's just taken a little longer than I ever anticipated it to. At the end of the day, I've got my health. I've managed to carry on with life, and like I say, become strong, and feel like I look physically. I'm physically better in even spiritually, emotionally, and everything than before I even went into the experience. So I've got a lot to be grateful for. So it's just one of those things, and I think when we are dealt these hands in life, it's just learning how to make them work for you, and come out even bigger and better than the person you was before. That saying, when life hands you lemons, do you know what I mean? I really ran with that. Um, I did. I really ran with it. But like I say, it's not an easy thing to go through, and anyone who goes through anything traumatic like that will know it's not an easy thing to go through, and it's definitely not something that you'd expect when you're in, your 32 years of age. But like I say, cancer has no age limit. Cancer can come for any of us at any present moment in time. So that's why it's essential. You've got to look after yourself. And if you do feel like, something might be wrong, get straight in the doctors, because early detection is everything, especially when it comes to cancer. So I hope that by sharing some light and insight on my journey, that it can, shine a light on people who are going through something similar, if not the same experience, and just to give people a little bit of knowledge of kind of, the things that go on behind the scenes, because it's hard for family members as well to know how to deal with it, because it is so intense, and it's mentally and emotionally draining experience for everyone involved. But it's just like, just got to be kind to yourself, and take each day as it comes, and don't try and be in a rush. You've got to look after yourself and make yourself a number one priority, 100%. But yeah, feel good for coming on and sharing. I feel a bit like drained now. Because I actually filmed this story before, and it was only an audio, so I've had to sit and talk through it again. And yeah, I feel, because it's good to come and talk about it, because even though, a few years have passed, doesn't mean that, the trauma still isn't like deep inside there. So it is good to come on and talk about it. And like I say, potentially help others in the process. So thank you for listening to my story, and I hope that it's been able to shine some light and bring others comfort listening to it. Thank you so much.